Have you ever wondered why some men crumble under pressure while others seem untouchable? Why some men chase every comfort, every approval, every fleeting distraction, and yet never feel truly alive? The truth is harsh, but it's a truth that can change everything if you are willing to face it. Most men are not defeated by their enemies, by luck, or by fate. They are defeated by themselves. Their own habits, fears, and illusions slowly chip away at their strength, piece by piece, day by day, until one day they wake up and realize they are no longer the men they once believed themselves to be. Society has taught men to avoid discomfort, to seek approval, to hide emotions, and to numb pain rather than confront it. From childhood, the path of least resistance is praised. Comfort is celebrated. Instant gratification is rewarded. And yet, strength is never built in comfort. Power is never earned in distraction. A man who fears discomfort, who runs from responsibility, who lets every slight, every failure, every challenge define him. This man is being broken, whether he realizes it or not. The first step in understanding how a man is broken is recognizing that most men live in illusions. Illusions of control, illusions of safety, illusions of importance. They tell themselves stories that make them feel powerful. I am doing well. I have time. Tomorrow will be easier. But these stories are lies. They are a shield that hides the truth from their eyes. And the moment reality strikes, whether it's failure, loss, or betrayal, they crumble because they have never faced themselves fully. They have never been tested. Imagine living a life where every small fear is avoided, every small challenge is postponed, and every mistake is blamed on someone else. This is how a man is quietly broken over time. It doesn't happen in grand failures or catastrophic events. It happens in the ordinary, in the daily compromises, in the repeated surrender to comfort and distraction. Every excuse is a crack in the foundation. Every fear avoided is a piece of strength wasted. And most men do not even notice. They continue walking their path, thinking they are strong, while in reality, the life they are building is fragile, and the man inside is being destroyed slowly, imperceptibly, by the very habits he trusts. Here's a truth few dare to say aloud: breaking a man is not always about punching him, insulting him, or humiliating him. Often, it is about letting him live in his illusions, about letting him choose comfort over challenge, distraction over discipline, excuses over responsibility. The world will not always break a man for you. Most of the time, men break themselves. And the irony is that the same pain that destroys them can also create them if they are willing to wake up. If you stay with me until the end of this video, you will learn not only how men are broken, but also how the very process that destroys them can be used to forge unbreakable strength. You will see that weakness is not permanent, and that a man who understands the forces that try to break him can rise above them stronger, sharper, and unstoppable. By understanding the patterns that shatter ordinary men, you will gain the key to becoming extraordinary. A man who does not crumble when life tests him, but who thrives because of the pressure, because of the struggle, because of the fire that once threatened to destroy him. The first step is awareness. The moment you see the cracks in the foundation, the illusions, the habits that weaken, you start to reclaim control. Every man has been broken in some way. Every man has faced moments where his confidence faltered, where his courage faded, where his mind whispered, "I cannot." But the difference between those who fall and those who rise is simple. The rising man sees the truth, faces it, and refuses to let it define him. He does not deny pain. He does not chase comfort. He does not run from responsibility. And in that refusal, he begins the process of becoming unbreakable. Some men think that only failure, loss, or betrayal can break them. They imagine it will take a catastrophic event to shatter their confidence or steal their power. But the truth is far more subtle and far more dangerous. Men are often broken by things that seem small, ordinary, even inevitable. Rejection, comparison, loneliness, repeated setbacks. The kind of pressures that drip slowly day after day, until the soul grows weary, the mind doubts, and the will bends under invisible weight. Rejection is not just a word. It is a force. Every time a man is dismissed, ignored, or betrayed, it sends a ripple through his sense of self. Some shrug it off, some fight through it, but many allow it to settle, quietly, like a poison. Over time, the fear of rejection becomes a cage. Decisions are delayed, dreams are abandoned. The man who once moved forward boldly now hesitates at every turn, waiting for approval, fearing judgment, terrified of failure. Comparison is equally deadly. In a world overflowing with images of success, strength, and confidence, it is easy to measure yourself against what others have and feel less than, unworthy, weak. A man who constantly looks outward instead of inward begins to doubt his own value. He forgets the power he already possesses. He forgets that every struggle he faces is unique and that his journey cannot be measured by another's path. Comparison breaks the mind, and a broken mind cannot lead a strong life. Loneliness, too, can erode a man quietly, without warning. It is not the absence of people that wounds, it is the absence of understanding, the feeling that no one sees your struggle, that no one respects your fight. A man left alone with his doubts can either crumble or rise. Most crumble. They let despair whisper lies. You are weak. You are not enough. You are failing. And when these whispers are repeated enough, the mind accepts them as truth. Then there is failure, repeated, relentless, unavoidable failure. Life does not always hand out victories. The man who has never been tested may think he is strong until he faces the weight of disappointment. And yet, failure alone does not break a man. Weakness does. The man who refuses to learn from failure, who blames others, who lets pain define him instead of teach him, this is the man who breaks. He loses more than confidence. He loses control over his destiny. The cruelest truth is that most men collapse not because life is unfair, but because their inner direction is missing. Purpose is the armor of the strong. Without it, every setback becomes unbearable, every criticism unbearable, every struggle unbearable. Purpose is the force that turns pressure into power, struggle into mastery. Without it, even small challenges become mountains, and a man can be brought to his knees by what others would ignore. The patterns that break men are consistent. They are repeated over and over, surrendering to fear, avoiding responsibility, chasing comfort, letting pain fester unexamined. They are not dramatic, they are invisible, and yet they are unstoppable unless the man himself chooses to see them. The moment he recognizes these forces, he steps into a different world. The moment he understands that rejection, comparison, loneliness, and failure are not punishments but mirrors, he begins to reclaim power. This is the paradox. The same forces that break most men can forge the strongest. Pain, pressure, loss, and failure are not enemies, they are tools. The difference is mindset. The difference is whether the man bends under weight or uses it to rise taller than he ever imagined. Awareness is the key. Without it, even small, everyday pressures will quietly erode strength. With it, even the heaviest blows become stepping stones to greatness. Strength is not built in dramatic moments. It is built in the ordinary, in the choices a man makes every single day. And yet, the ordinary is also where most men are quietly broken. It is the small, repeated habits that seem harmless at first, avoiding responsibility, chasing comfort, reacting emotionally, seeking approval, that slowly erode the foundation of a man's strength. These habits do not announce themselves. They are silent, patient, and deadly. And once they take root, they can destroy a man from the inside out before he even realizes what is happening. Procrastination is one of the most dangerous of these habits. A man who postpones action, who convinces himself that tomorrow is enough, is slowly giving his power away. Each delay may feel small, a task ignored, a conversation avoided, a decision postponed, but these small moments compound. They tell the mind that it is safe to wait, that risk is dangerous, that the world can be ignored. And the world does not wait. Opportunities pass. Time slips away. The man who surrenders to procrastination gradually loses his edge. Confidence fades. Courage diminishes. Dreams shrink. Comfort is another silent killer. A man who seeks comfort above challenge will always find himself weaker than he imagines. Comfort is seductive. It whispers, "Stay here. Don't push. Don't struggle. You deserve this peace." But strength is never forged in comfort. Courage, resilience, and power are only developed when a man faces the fire and refuses to turn away. Every day spent chasing ease, avoiding difficulty, or numbing the mind is a day spent weakening the soul. Small compromises today become large regrets tomorrow. The need for approval is a trap disguised as connection. A man who constantly seeks validation from others builds his life around someone else's expectations. Every action is measured, every choice questioned, every opinion weighted by the approval of others. This destroys autonomy. It erodes self-respect. A man who lives to please others cannot be strong, because his power is borrowed, not owned. True strength comes from standing alone, from trusting your own judgment, and from acting with integrity regardless of who approves or disapproves. Emotional reactivity is another force that quietly breaks men. Every time a man allows anger, fear, jealousy, or frustration to control him, he loses a piece of himself. Reacting emotionally is surrendering control to the world. It is handing over power to events, to words, to people who have no right to command it. Calmness, composure, and self-mastery are weapons stronger than any fist. The man who cannot control his mind is at the mercy of life itself, constantly battered by forces that could have been neutralized with discipline and awareness. Blame is perhaps the deadliest of all. A man who points fingers, who refuses to own his failures, who sees the world as an enemy will never rise. Every excuse given, every rationalization made, is a brick in the wall that separates him from power. Blame tells the mind, I am powerless. The world is stronger than I am. Nothing I do matters. And the mind listens. Slowly, imperceptibly, a man loses faith in himself. Confidence disappears. Willpower fades. His life is no longer led, it is endured. The truth is simple, and it is brutal. Weakness is built habit by habit, choice by choice. Every small escape today creates a larger struggle tomorrow. Every compromise, every fear avoided, every instant of distraction, every surrender to comfort, these are the invisible hammers striking at a man's foundation. And most men never even notice. They think strength is something they are born with, a natural gift. But strength is forged, deliberately, consciously every day. And if it is not forged, it is stolen by habits that seem insignificant, but are lethal. Awareness is the turning point. The moment a man sees the habits that weaken him, he gains the power to change. The same habits that quietly destroy can be transformed into instruments of strength. Procrastination becomes action. Comfort becomes challenge. Seeking approval becomes trusting judgment. Emotional reactivity becomes composure. Blame becomes ownership. Each habit reversed strengthens the man, builds resilience, and sharpens focus. The cruel irony is that life often presents the very pressures and challenges that would break an ordinary man, yet these pressures are the tools for those willing to rise. Every obstacle, every failure, every insult or betrayal is not just a test. It is a chance to reshape habits, to rebuild from the inside, and to forge a version of yourself that cannot be shaken by ordinary life. But only those who are aware of the slow, silent forces that weaken them can seize this opportunity. Awareness is the first strike against weakness, and action is the weapon that transforms potential into power. Breaking a man does not always mean destroying him forever. The harshest truths, the deepest struggles, the pressure that crushes most men, these can also be the tools of transformation. The man who survives the breakdown of comfort, illusion, and weakness has the chance to rebuild himself stronger than ever. But it begins with a choice, the choice to break the old self intentionally, to strip away excuses, fear, and ego, and to confront the man you have become with brutal honesty. The first step is confronting your ego. The ego is the part of a man that resists change, that hides behind pride, that whispers, I am already enough. It keeps a man comfortable in weakness, content in illusion, and blind to the habits that destroy him. To break the old self, a man must silence that voice. He must face his mistakes without justification, see his failures without defense, and accept the truth of his limitations without shame. The moment this happens, the foundations of weakness start to crack, not as punishment, but as preparation for something stronger. Excuses must also be destroyed. Every excuse is a chain, every justification a prison. A man who blames circumstances, others, or luck surrenders control of his life. Breaking the old self means refusing to let excuses rule decisions, feelings, and actions. It means taking ownership of every choice, every habit, every failure. Ownership is not easy. It is uncomfortable. It forces a man to face the consequences of his life fully. But this discomfort is not destruction, it is liberation. Only a man who owns himself can build himself. Fear is another enemy that must be confronted. Fear is subtle. It hides as hesitation, doubt, and avoidance. It convinces a man to settle, to compromise, to shrink from struggle. Breaking the old self means stepping into fear rather than running from it. It means allowing fear to teach, to sharpen, to prepare a man for the challenges ahead. Fear is not a sign of weakness, it is a sign of opportunity. The man who moves forward while afraid discovers power, resilience, and confidence that cannot be taken away. Discipline is the tool of transformation. Where the old self is broken by habit, weakness, and avoidance, the new self is forged through deliberate action. Daily effort, self-control, and consistency become the weapons of the unbreakable man. Discipline is not punishment. It is a declaration that life will not dictate strength, that pain will not dictate surrender, that every challenge is a chance to grow. The small actions repeated daily are what build a strong foundation that no failure, no insult, no pressure can shake. Emotional mastery is the final element. The old self is reactive, vulnerable to every slight insult or frustration. The new self observes, controls, and responds deliberately. Anger becomes focus, frustration becomes fuel, pain becomes insight. By mastering emotion, a man turns what once broke him into the force that shapes him. He becomes unshakable because his power is no longer borrowed from circumstances, it is claimed from within. The paradox is clear: to build an unbreakable man, the old self must first be broken intentionally. Every habit that weakened, every fear that controlled, every ego that resisted must be confronted, dismantled, and transformed. The pressure that destroyed ordinary men becomes the crucible that forges extraordinary ones. The struggles that defeated most become the tools that empower the few. This is the moment when weakness becomes strength, pain becomes power, and destruction becomes creation. The man who breaks himself deliberately does not fall, he rises sharper, stronger, and unstoppable. The man who conquers his old self begins a journey to a level of control, discipline, and resilience that life itself cannot undo. The man who has broken his old self, confronted his fears, silenced his ego, and mastered his habits stands at the threshold of something few ever reach: true, unbreakable strength. This is not strength that can be measured by muscle or wealth. It is the strength of the mind, the soul, and the will. It is the calmness in chaos, the focus in pressure, the confidence that no insult, betrayal, or failure can shake. The man who rises from the breaking knows that the world cannot break him, not because life has been kind, but because he has learned to control what truly matters: himself. Responsibility becomes his foundation. Every choice, every action, every moment of effort belongs to him. He no longer allows circumstances or other people to dictate his life. He knows that weakness lies in surrendering control, and he refuses to surrender again. The challenges that once seemed unbearable are now tests to measure his growth. Every difficulty becomes a reflection of his strength, not a reflection of his failure. Purpose becomes his compass. The man who rebuilds himself with clarity knows what he stands for, what he fights for, and what he refuses to compromise. Without purpose, even the strongest can drift, falter, and collapse. But with purpose, every hardship becomes meaningful, every obstacle becomes fuel, every loss becomes a lesson. Purpose turns struggle into strategy and pain into power. The man who rises from intentional destruction walks through life with a clarity that cannot be shaken. Mental toughness becomes his shield. The insults, betrayals, and pressures that once wounded him now roll off like water from steel. He understands that life will always test him. The world will always throw challenges, opponents, and obstacles in his path. But testing is not breaking. Testing is preparation. The unbreakable man does not fear pressure, he welcomes it. Every confrontation, every difficulty, every moment of chaos becomes an opportunity to prove to himself that he is no longer fragile, no longer dependent, no longer weak. Emotional sovereignty becomes his power. Where once he may have reacted with anger, jealousy, or despair, he now observes, understands, and chooses his response. He has learned that power is silent, patience is strength, and composure is unstoppable. No one can control him because he has learned to control himself. No one can weaken him because he has strengthened the part of him that no one else can touch. The world breaks weak men so stronger men can rise. Every hardship, every betrayal, every failure is not punishment, it is preparation. The man who has learned to break his old self, to confront what weakens him, and to rebuild intentionally becomes untouchable. He is calm when others panic, decisive when others hesitate, powerful when others are distracted by weakness. He is not unbreakable because life is easy. He is unbreakable because he has faced life in all its cruelty and chosen to rise. This is the ultimate reward of struggle mastery over self. Every pain becomes insight. Every failure becomes a lesson. Every challenge becomes fuel. The man who rebuilds himself stronger than before does not fear the world. He does not beg for approval. He does not chase comfort. He stands firm, unshaken, unstoppable. Life may test him endlessly, but the man who has been broken and rebuilt knows the secret. The world cannot break what has already been forged in fire, struggle, and relentless determination. Strength, purpose, discipline, and mastery, these are the marks of the unbreakable man. And every man who chooses to face himself honestly, to dismantle weakness deliberately, and to rebuild with intention has the power to rise above ordinary life and become extraordinary.